All right, this is always the weird part where it's like, okay, are we live and I got to check this computer. I really do need some sort of grand opening and some sort of, to get the guy from Kiss to do the pyrotechnics and have, the Miles Davis band or something playing, to introduce it. But I think we are, let me see here. Looks like we're live. We'll wait for I get a notice when people start joining, so we'll give a few minutes because I did log on a little bit early, but we've got a couple people here, so it's coming up. If you guys can hear, fine. Let me know. If you can't hear, if you can't see, everything looks good on my end here. So, all right. All right, Loth, I got a guy, Buddy says from Canada says we're good. So looks like we got about 5 or 6 viewers. So we'll go ahead and start. Thanks everybody for coming back for another one of these fun little Sunday afternoon deals. I took last week off. It was my birthday weekend, so we took it off and celebrated the 4th of July by being quarantined because my family had a close encounter with someone who had been tested positive. So everything came out fine and. We're good. My kiddo and I took a little trip to Roswell, New Mexico this week for a little what I'm going to call work or research. Real quick, some housekeeping. Let everybody know what we've got coming up. Next week is the Booze and Bourbon podcast girls, Jen Taylor and Kim Mosier. I had asked earlier for if you have any questions for they have a little podcast. They have a podcast, and part of their podcast they have a question game called Would You Rather. So if you guys have any questions for that, please chime in. Check out the podcast, and we'll ask those questions. So we'll get to the housekeeping later. I can see all these people joining, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll introduce today's guest. Several years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, I was doing a show, and I have a pretty long clue routine. And I think I've talked about it on here several times, and several of you guys have seen it. I've got a clue routine where it ends up with all of the suspects on stage dressed in different costumes, and it's a real-life kind of solve the mystery. And I performed that at Tower 56 Distillery in downtown Greeley, and a regular customer and somebody who comes to the shows pretty regularly approached me afterwards and asked if I'd be interested in putting together a murder mystery party for her. So I got online, and I said, yeah, I know how to do it. And I don't know how to do any of it yet. So I got online and started buying as many books as I could and watching as many videos. And I came across mysteriesonthenet.com. And Jack has you have an introduction series on YouTube of, I think, 5 or 6 videos. Is that right, of an introduction? And I watched that several times. So then I reached out to Jack and sent some emails back and forth and saw that he had a workshop in Milwaukee. And well, I'd never been to Milwaukee, so we signed up and we went, and it was amazing. So Jack and I had we became fast friends right away. We shared a lot of things in common and had a bunch of things planned, which we'll get to. But so Jack, thanks for joining us today. And I think I've kind of given how I came across you and how we met. So if you want to go ahead and kind of tell your story of how you ended up in this silly Sunday afternoon show, fire away.
Now, how do all of us end up where we are right now, Paul? That's one of those trick questions.
Right. If I only knew, I want my money back. So.
I never started out to be a mystery writer. My degrees are in radio and television, and I've also got a degree in international relations. That's a whole other story. But I was a professional speaker for about 11 years. And then I literally traveled the world. I spoke in Greece, I spoke in Romania, China, Malaysia, Singapore. And then a certain date happened. It was called 9/11/01. You may have heard of that date. I was on the platform giving a presentation, and halfway through my program in the morning, the president of the association got up and said, "We are under terrorist attack." So suddenly nobody traveled, nobody was meeting, nobody was doing anything for a long time until this whole thing got sorted out. But guess what? The bills keep coming.
Yeah.
I mean, my slate of bookings, and you know how this feels right now, Paul, my slate of bookings just got wiped out because nobody was going anyplace. So in the early 80s, I started writing murder mystery events for my friends because I live in Wisconsin, Cedarburg, Wisconsin. I'm in my subterranean world headquarters right now, Paul. You can figure that out. Yeah. And so I started writing murder movies as a way to take some time out of a cold Wisconsin winter. After a while, some of my friends started telling their friends about the murder mysteries, and suddenly I had a cottage industry. People were calling me to do mystery parties. Well, when 9/11 occurred, the bills kept coming. And bills don't stop coming just because you're not going out and giving presentations and doing your normal routine. So I thought, what can I do? Well, in 2001, the internet was in its infancy. But I thought, I'm going to take some of these mysteries that I wrote, I'll make digital files out of them, and I'm going to sell them online. So I took a quick course in designing websites. This is before you could just, right now, you've got how many places will design websites for you? Well, in 2001, tons. 2001, it wasn't that way. So I designed a website, and I put up the mysteries I had written, and suddenly people started buying them. And lo and behold, I had a business. Well, that branched into lots of other things, like mystery seminars. In other words, I tie some of the content that I used to do as a speaker, negotiations, team building, communications, I tie that to a mystery, which means you solve the case and you process it into skills that people use on an everyday basis. And so you're not just going in there and having a case study and people have to get the right answer. You have a lot of fun. And after you have the fun, you say, by the way, while you were having fun, do you realize what skills you were using and how you used them and how you set goals and how you negotiated for information? You do that every day in the workplace. So the mysteries got tied to my normal professional speaking content. Then I started getting calls. Paul will talk about this too. I would get mothers call and say, I want to use your mysteries for a kids' party. Why do I want to murder? No murders. Well, I have a site called kids-mysteries.com, and there are 19 they're not murder mysteries, they are non-murder mysteries.
There's mystery parties, right.
Yeah, and they're non-murder mysteries. They're just nice little fun games, and they are for kids. So if you want to have a mystery party for a kid, you don't have to worry about all the things that go into a murder investigation. These are non-murder mysteries. Well, that branched out again, too, because I went to a internet seminar around 2006, and I met a guy named Lou Edwards. I know you've talked with Lou too. Lou runs a company called specialeventsatsea.com, and I thought, hey, murder mystery cruises. So I now have murder mystery cruises, mysteryboat.com. And by the way, I had one planned for roughly this time this year with a magician in Colorado. What was his name? Oh,
You'll see his ugly mug if you go to Mystery Boat? Is that what it was? Mysteryboat.com or
mysteryboat.com.
If you go there, you'll see his ugly mug on there. And back before I gained all the weight back from sitting around drinking beer during quarantine, back when I was a little bit slimmer, you'll see a great picture. So, well, that's so.
I like all the,
so your
I like disclaimers. We always get the disclaimers on the pictures, don't we?
Right. Well, I'm looking. I set up my camera. I took my camera with me to Roswell, and I reset it back up, and I'm looking at myself in the screen. I'm like, oh man, I look like garbage. So I got to get a better view. I got to redo this so I'm not as funny looking. So I want to talk a little bit about your the murder mystery. I know you didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, I like this, I'm going to do it. When I was a kid growing up, I would take the city bus down, as probably 13, 14, 12 years old, I would take the city bus to the little Woody's newsstand in downtown Greeley, Colorado, and I would buy the Alfred Hitchcock, the little magazines, or the Ellery Queen mysteries. And I would read those at 12 or 13 years old, and I wouldn't understand a lot of them. And, so I would have a dictionary with me, and I'd look up some of the words that I didn't understand and try to put it together. But I always loved the idea of mysteries. And Clue, as I mentioned earlier, and anybody who knows me, I'm obsessed with the game Clue. I've got all the Clue pieces tattooed on my arms, and I love the idea of an interactive a mystery, and I read the Agatha Christie, and then there None is one of my favorites, and I know it's had several titles, and we can talk about that sometime else. But the movie Knives Out just recently came out, and I think that really sparked a little bit of interest again in the mystery. So were you a fan of mystery fiction? Were you a fan of true crime stories? What fostered the idea that you want to write these mysteries?
Well, I think it's the gamesmanship. I'm a fan of trying to figure things out. The intrigue to me is to read or to have any kind of a game, for lack of a better term, where I have to put the pieces together to get the solution. Okay. And you mentioned Agatha Christie. My mysteries are Agatha Christie-ish. What I mean by that is it's not blood, gore, dismemberment, and having nice people get killed. Right. And we talked about this when you were at my workshop. in my mysteries, the person that gets murdered, you don't like murder per se, but you kind of say, well, yeah, but he or she deserved it anyway.
Right. They were always a bad guy. They were always up to something nefarious, and to put them in the position they were in.
Yeah, that way people don't focus on what this nice person did that would have gotten them killed, or on the blood and gore of the event. What they focus on is, well, let's put the pieces together to solve this case. So when you're talking about what I used to read, I like the mind games. I like to think and to try to figure out what's going on. So all of my mysteries have a definite, I'll call it a critical path. It goes back to my corporate world, right? The critical path thing. That if you follow all the clues and you really think about what's going on, only this person could have done it. And I appreciate the fact that you like Clue. By the way, my wife's English. It's Cluedo in England, as you well know. And Cluedo,
this will show you what a real nerd I was, or am, about Clue. Before it became Cluedo, it was called Murder. And the first variation of it was called Murder. And then they changed it to Cluedo in Europe. And then when they brought it to the United States, I don't know if you know this or not, when they brought it to the United States, Professor Green was Reverend Green, and Mrs.
Yes.
White was Nurse White. And when they brought it to the United States, they changed it because they didn't think that the American audience would approve of a man of the cloth being a suspect or a nurse being a suspect. So they made her a maid, and then they made Mr. Green the most uninteresting, boring character in the game. I mean, they didn't assign any attributes to him. He's just Mr. Green. And so I don't know if you've seen Clue lately. They've changed it considerably. They've gotten rid of a couple characters, and they've renamed the names of the rooms. They now have like a media room and a spa room and a workout room, because nobody has conservatories in their house anymore. So it's a different game. I bought one for my nephew for his birthday last month, and I was looking at it. And I thought, this isn't. It's not the game we love. So, but okay. So yeah. So I'll quit talking about Clue. But yes, I'm glad your wife has played Cluedo.
Well, if you or your friends ever want to look up Cluedo on the internet, you're going to find that there were originally about 15 different characters. And
right.
It wasn't the ones. No, but it was. I think it was Parson, whatever the color was in England. It wasn't Reverend. It was Parson. Somebody.
Yeah.
But I have a little footnote. Yesterday, I got a phone call from somebody in New York who said, "I am going to have a Clue mystery party tomorrow, and I'm not sure how to run it. Could you help me?" Got that? Mystery party would have been tonight. He's having it in New York, right?
Right.
So, and hopefully he's watching right now. So, Felix, sorry if I tell the story, but I don't think that people realize how much it takes to put into a kit, to put into a mystery. It's not just a case of creating the characters and a case of trying to assign who did it, because as you well know, sometimes you really don't know who did it until you start writing the story.
Well, and that's on my notes to talk about, because when I took the go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead.
But the point is, you've got to put all those pieces together to make sense of it, and it takes more than just writing down names and figuring out I want this person to be the murderer, because what you do not want to do is to cheat your audience with the mystery. You don't want to make it so easy that it's easy to figure out, so complicated that it's too difficult, but you want it to make sense. You want them to say, oh yeah, I didn't get the right answer, but looking at all the clues, I missed those couple of clues there. Had I gotten those couple of clues there, I would have figured it out. You don't want to cheat people by throwing in extraneous facts or by putting in something at the end that they knew nothing about. Suddenly the twin brother appears, and that's the real murderer.
Right.
That's not fair to do something like that. You've got to give them enough so that they can actually figure out what went on. So the answer to your question was, it's the gamesmanship that attracts me more than just a particular author or a particular genre of mysteries. Although I do like Conan Doyle too with Holmes.
Yes.
Because again, I like the powers of observation and the mind games, and you see something and what does that mean? I like those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned on it, and we'll kind of start here and kind of jump all around with this. Is that I think I bought a half dozen different books and watched, I don't know, maybe 20 different videos before I signed up for your seminar, and I had started writing my own. And your workshop, we'll talk a little bit about your workshop. It's a weekend workshop in Milwaukee at the Brumder Mansion, which is an amazing house, right in the heart of Milwaukee. We came in on a Thursday night, and I think your seminar's Friday, Saturday, and depart Sunday. At the workshop?
I actually Thursday, Friday, and part day Saturday.
Okay, right.
But you have one day off, Paul, but you're close. And let me just give a 25-cent tour of the Brumder. The Brumder was built in 1910, and the Brumder, the name George Brumder will mean something to people in Milwaukee, but no place else. George Brumder was the publisher of the German language newspaper in Milwaukee. He had 8 kids, and he built all 8 of them a mansion. And the one that you were at, the Brumder Mansion, is at 31st in Wisconsin. He built it for George Jr. It was finished in 1910. Well, about 10 years later, George Jr. had some financial problems and sold the mansion to someone named Sam Pick, not knowing that Sam had a wonderful friend in Chicago named Capone. So some of the vices in Milwaukee were run out of there. And the Speakeasy Theater, where we were doing a lot of our things, that was actually a speakeasy during the 1920s, and there's a wall in the Speakeasy Theater that is all cemented up now, because that used to be the tunnel that went to the mansion across the street, of course, in the 1920s. Cool. But the thing that Paul was talking about, of course, is that right now they've had parapsychologists in there, and they've identified 15 spirits that could still live in the Brumder Mansion. So that's where we conduct our murder mystery writing program. And by the way, that's at writeamystery.com. I'll keep tossing out these websites for you, Paul.
Yeah, and I'll keep note of them. If Vic's watching, he can post them on. If not, I'll keep note of them, and I'll post them all on the Facebook page tomorrow or tonight.
Well, I'm not sure we can get them all, because every so often I get an idea and a brand new one comes up. So I lose track myself of how many websites I have out there. But yeah, that program is a 3-day event, and we start with the characters and the suspects and the theme, and we go through the entire putting together a murder mystery. I have my 7 secrets that I give up front, and we follow those. And at the end of it, when you leave, and you and Danielle, I hope, left with a good basis for what you were doing, I leave you with enough things to write your own mystery. That's the whole idea. But when you leave there, you can finish off all the character descriptions and finish off everything else. And by the time you're finished, you have a murder mystery party. Now, a lot of people come there to write a regular murder mystery, and that's fine, because a lot of the tips, a lot of the things I'm doing, it transfers over to a regular murder mystery novel. But we focused on the party, and Paul, we talked a little bit about this too, that a mystery party is about a 2 to 2.5 hour event. So you've got to be able to streamline this in such a way that enough information comes out in that period to make it an entertaining event, but something that's solvable. People have got to be able to solve it with the clues that you put into the entire event.
Well, and I think this where I was going with this was my problem, is as I had done all this research and I found all these other books, and I had started the process. And I came in, and anybody out there who's ever collaborated with me on a magic routine or helped me they're gonna laugh when they hear me finally admit this out loud. Is I come with this many ideas for a show that needs to be this big. And when I sat down and you were so great, because I think the other group that was there presented theirs, and we got to workshop it, and then when it was my turn, I'm like, all right, here we go. And I pull out these notebooks and I just start dumping all these characters and these ideas and these stories. And I think your comment, or maybe it was one of the other people there's comment was, now you're going to do this in 2.5 hours, because this looks like this is maybe a 3-day event, because I had all these characters, and I had this idea of an antique roadshow kind of deal that dealt with paranormal and occult objects, and it was a great, and a secret society that wanted to buy this object back, and it was really great. But what I appreciated the most out of your workshop, of all the things that I appreciated about it, what I appreciated the most was it really forced me to focus on a time frame, and a plus B equals C equals D has to do this. It has to follow a formula, which has translated really well into my performance of the Mystery Collection shows. It's kind of helped me focus down into this. And and I don't know if I'm tipping secrets or not. I had started writing my own before we had done this, and I started with the murderer. That's the first person I came up with, was the murderer. And that was absolutely the worst last thing you should do. That is the worst idea, is to start with your murderer, because then you're building your whole story around the the murderer, as opposed to letting it flow naturally. So I won't tell your advice, but if you want to talk a little bit about why that was wrong for me to do that, and what the way to start this process would be.
Well, we all have our own way of doing things, Paul. So this is my way.
Right.
What I have found, and I have written over 30 mysteries. They're online at mysteriesonthenet.com. What I have found is that I start to write a mystery, and in my head I'll say, yeah, I think I know this person did it. I'll get about halfway through, and then I'll find a better murderer.
Right.
Because what you do is you start to develop the suspects. And you know this, we put the suspects down, and we talk about who they were, where they came from, even the names of their parents and the professions of their parents, and how things tie together. And suddenly you're going to say, well, you know what? Maybe I thought this person did it, but this person is a better murderer than that person. So literally, with at least half of my mysteries, the person that I think did it at the beginning when I started writing it does not end up being the murderer at the end. Because once I start fleshing out the suspects and the backstories and how the suspects know each other and how they knew the victim and where they came from, sometimes even the location they came from becomes a clue. They were born in a different country, and in that country these things happen. Oh my goodness, there's a certain herb that grows in that country that could be mixed in with the coffee, and your mind just starts to go in all different directions. So I never ever get locked into a murderer at the beginning. I may have an idea that this person probably did it, but I don't lock myself in, because I think that as I develop the characters, as I develop the suspects, I could find a better plot than the one that was in my head at the beginning.
Right. And I was going through my notes today, and I'll show kind of the workbook here in a second. I was going through the notes today just to kind of refresh some of the things, and something I had starred several times and underlined was no motive is better or worse than another motive for murder. You know, a motive is a motive. And sure, if a guy had stolen $1 million from a guy, the guy's going to be pissed and maybe want him dead. But maybe he stole $30. That's still a motive. You know, who's to say that your motive is not better than another motive? So when I did this on my own, before taking your workshop, I was trying to make the strongest motive. Who has the strongest motive? It doesn't need to be the strongest motive, because motives are personal. Motives are reasons, you know, motivation. Why is this person doing it is the most important thing to them. So that was a real kind of a thing that I also carried over into my performance of the mystery collection shows, is that the reason for people picking things, or the reason for people believing things, it's personal. No answer is better than another. It's a person. If you're asking for personal answers. So I really appreciate that whole idea of kind of slimming down that and not having to force the murderer right off. I mean, it really helped me quite a bit with the development of the what turned out to be the part of the God Machine routine and the God Machine show that I'm putting together. So what's so I'm sorry I interrupted. Let's get back to the how you start writing this.
Well, footnote to what you said, because when I do the murder mystery parties and I give the solution, I will frequently, not every time, frequently get somebody come up and say, that's not a good enough reason for murder. And my response is always, have you ever watched the evening news?
Right.
Because just watch the evening news and find out why people get irritated and why they get angry and why certain things happen. And you would say that half of the evening news doesn't make sense.
Right.
Well, it's internal. Like you said, motive is motivation. Why would I do that? I mean, if you just look, and I mean, we're talking about murder mysteries, but if you look on the news at night and find out why some killings occur, and they are ridiculous reasons, but to the person who committed the crime, that was a good enough reason at that moment to do what they did.
Right.
So yeah, there's no such thing as a bad motive for murder.
Well, I am a junkie for investigative discovery, and I watch murder TV all the time. It's always on in the background, and the motives for that, and that's one of the things that I've discovered is in doing this, is that some of the motives, it even blows the investigators away. It's like, really, that was the reason, but it's personal. It's a personal motivation. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also some of the ways that people die. And I'll give you a good example of that. In one of my mysteries, the murder weapon is stiletto heels, right? Literally, the murderer, obviously a woman, stiletto heels, kicks the victim, and the heel is poisoned, and the victim dies. And I have had people say, that's really kind of ridiculous. And I'll say, wait a minute, you know where I got that? It actually happened. This was a murder in Texas, that a young lady who found out her boyfriend was cheating, and she did him in with her stiletto heels.
That's awesome.
So some of these things that you think could never happen, they happen.
Yeah.
There's so many different variations out there in terms of the scenarios that you can use.
Well, I think one of the weapons in the one that I was working out before we came to a conclusion on it was a spider bite. I think we had talked about a poison, and it ended up being that the person had brought a spider with them, and that's I'm sure that's happened with snakes and spiders and different poisons. So that was kind of the fun thing too, is coming up with how the person was killed, and trying to make it the mystery, and that a gunshot, boom, fine, it's easy, but it's kind of more fun to make it a stiletto heel or to make it a spider bite, So, and you guys, if you have any questions, there's a Facebook Live feed, and I'm checking it. So if you have any questions for Jack or for me, go ahead and chime in, and we'll get them answered. We've got a good list of folks watching. So, we mentioned earlier that the social distancing has really kind of put a kibosh on a lot of things. I've talked about up to 40 shows and a hotel deal, and my first tour are gone. Starting to look at doing some things, and we'll talk a little bit. I'm gonna go on the road here in about a month, and we'll talk about that before we end. So how has this affected you? Your not only do you sell the mysteries that you've written online on mysteriesonthenet.com, but you also are a facilitator where you will bring either. You will do it for a group, or you will bring professional actors and do it for a group. You will intermix the two, where you have some people that are attendees and some people that are professional actors. How has this quarantine and how has the social distancing affected how you do this? Obviously, you're not putting rooms of 90 people together for big parties anymore.
Well, I'm not putting them in the same room.
Right.
We have something called Zoom. You may have heard of it, Paul. So I can put them into the same cyber room. And in fact, it's funny you should ask that, because I recently put up 2 sites. The Mystery Party Workshop that you talked about, it now is a site, mysterypartyworkshop.com. I teach people on the internet via a cyber classroom how to write mysteries. So I'm still doing the murder mystery writing seminars, but I'm doing them in cyberspace. And I'm also at a site called playmurdermysteries.com. You can't write all these down, Paul, because there's just too many of them. It's playmurdermysteries.com. I'm actually facilitating murder mystery events on the internet. That
question just came up. Karina Fenton just asked, can you run these parties on Zoom? So Karina, yes, he's doing these on Zoom.
Well, let me tell you about the one in Phoenix. Now, I live in Cedarburg, Wisconsin, and I'm doing a murder mystery in Phoenix in a few days. And I have 6 actors who are playing the roles. 6 semi-professional actors playing the roles. And the actors themselves are from Wisconsin, Louisiana, and Oregon. They aren't even in the same place, the actors. You don't have to be. And the people who are going to be the investigators, since they live at a condo complex in Phoenix, and they are snowbirds, they've gone home for the summer, so they're going to be attending from all across North America, Canada, and the United States. So the event is going to have actors that are geographically spread out. They're going to have investigators geographically spread out, and they're going to be going into breakout rooms for investigative rooms. So my nimble fingers have got to work correctly with this. We've been practicing, though. We've been rehearsing. After all, we are professionals.
Right.
And what I'll be doing is breaking down the people that get onto Zoom into breakout rooms where they can question each individual suspect. So I've got 6 suspects, 6 breakout rooms. I will be alternating the suspects among the breakout rooms, and the investigators will have a chance to question each individual suspect, and we get back together and we solve the case. So the answer is yes. It's a brand new service that I'm putting out there right now, and it can be done. Let me put another little footnote to that. I did an email blast about playmurdermysteries.com, and I got an email a few days ago from a mother in Maryland who said, I want to have a mystery party for my 9-year-old birthday party. Can it be done? Well, come on, Paul, you're like me. Sure, I can do that. Let's see, how can I do that?
I'll figure it out.
So, right? So, but it actually wasn't that difficult, because 2 of my actresses I have in the past asked me if, that we've talked about them facilitating my kids' mystery parties. So I got a hold of one of them, and she's going to facilitate from Wisconsin a kids' mystery party in Maryland. Now, the reason that I'm not doing it is because I'm not a kid anymore, Paul. I mean, I may surprise you, but it seemed like that she was better. You know, she has 5 kids, and she knows how to do these kind of things, and she's very good at what she does. It seemed like she was a better person. So even the kids' mysteries, and the mother said that she's inviting her daughter's entire class via Zoom.
Cool.
To the mystery party. And she said there are 23 kids in her daughter's class. She's not sure how many will attend, but we could have 23 kids at a kids' mystery party in Maryland, with the facilitator being right here in Wisconsin, talking them through the kids' mystery plot. So yes, it's possible. You know, the thing is, anything that happens out there in the world, the key to success is to be able to adapt what's going on, right? If it's going on and there's a way to do business based upon the current situation, then that's what you have to do.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing with those kinds of services.
So we'll post all the links at the end. I've got somebody's asked to post the website link. Is there a place where somebody can go and get all of the links? Do they link off of each other, or?
My main site is mysteriesonthenet.com.
You know what? I'm going to post it right now. I'm going to post the link in the comments right now, because it is.
Put a hyphen between the words. You know, way back when I started this, you had to have hyphens, or the internet thought it was all one big word. And sometimes it'll work without the hyphens. Sometimes it won't. So it's mysteries-on-the-net.com. And on the left-hand column at the bottom, you'll see links to a lot of the services. At the very top, there's going to be a flashing thing that says new. And that's the link that takes you to the Play Murder Mystery site, where I'll do the cyber facilitation.
Okay. I just posted it, the mysteries on the link or mysteriesonthenet.com. I just posted the link there, so hopefully I did it right. So that's there. I mean, that's one of the things that my group of peers that are mystery entertainers have really struggled with is. You saw my show. I was lucky enough to be able to do one of my shows for the group at the Brumder, and it's very interactive, and it all relies on spectators making decisions and coming. It's very interactive. None of it is ta-da, look what I can do. So that has been really hard for me to figure out how to transfer what I do in person to online. I believe you lose you lose a lot of the emotion, and you lose a lot of the sincerity of the performer in what I do online. So I've got a small group of magicians that we used to get together once a month for lunch, and we're just now starting to do it online. And we've challenged each other. Our next meeting in August, we have to have a routine that we do that we can transfer to online. So that's been a real struggle for me, is how to get the emotion and how to get the sincerity of what I do transferred online. So that's been a struggle for me. And I think with what you're doing, since it's goal, there's a goal. It's a game. You're more or less playing. I mean, I don't want to cheapen what it is, but you're playing a game. And so there's still that investment from the spectators is still there. And I'm really struggling with getting that from my show, is getting the investment from the spectators to get the vibe and the feel. So that's I'm interested to see how that works, and I think we've got a lot of folks here that are interested in. So you'll probably get hopefully you get some hits on it today. So you're.
Let me throw a real quick comment to that.
Yeah, please.
You use the word game. I like to use the word gamesmanship, because a game, I envision Monopoly, right? A game, Scrabble. The gamesmanship is what you sell with a murder mystery. It's the whole idea of not just winning a game. It's the whole idea of interacting, of looking for things, of putting together different components to get to the solution. To me, that's gamesmanship, and that's the word I use when I'm talking about the mysteries.
Yeah, that's great. That makes perfect sense. I've got a couple questions that have come up. I've got
sure.
one the question is where do you hire your performers from, and how would one apply to be one of your performers? Can they just reach out to you through Mysteries on the Net?
Well, one of the things is, if you're in Wisconsin, that's a good start, because why that's not entirely true. One of the on cyberspace, one of my performers is outside of, well, she's 2 hours from New Orleans, and I have another performer in Oregon. I met Amanda, who is the person in Louisiana, because she took my cyber murder mystery writing session. She went to mysterypartyworkshop.com. She signed up. I met her. She does her own murder mysteries in Louisiana, and I thought, great, I can use her. The actor in Oregon is named John Rakestraw. John is one of my licensees. I've got a licensee program too. Here we go with another website, Paul. You ready for this one? mysterypartypro.com. Let me tell you about that one. What I found out was people would call me and ask me if I would facilitate mysteries, and I'd say, sure, I'd love to. Okay, I'm in California. Well, gee, I'm in Wisconsin. Oh, do I have to pay your expenses? Well, yeah, you do. So what I have is a program where people are my licensees. That if I get an opportunity outside of my area, which really my geographical area is Minneapolis to Chicago, if I don't want to fly, I'll do workshops and I'll do murder mysteries any place. Let me give you the whole spiel. I've done them as far south as Disney World, and as far north as Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, as far east as Duck, North Carolina, and as far west as the Queen Mary. So, I've covered the states, but obviously if I'm going to be doing some traveling, you have to pay my expenses. My actors right now on cyberspace, my actors can be any place. They really can. I use people who have experience with community theater, with little theater, who have some sort of acting expertise. So, I'm not paying for Hollywood actors. I'm paying for people that understand this stage, understand their emotions, their facial expressions. They've got to become that character. Mm-hmm. And they've also got to learn who they are, because when they are acting this out live or in cyberspace, they've got to be that person.
Right. Well, that's a great, that leads into the next question. My friend James Butler from Louisiana said that half of his workday is spent on Zoom meetings. And he recently attended a murder mystery on Zoom, but it felt too much like work. No one was dressed in character, no sound effects, and no music. Can you explain more about the Zoom parties? How does how do you get that? And then I'll follow up with this other question because it ties in as well. Bill Barkley from New York City says, do you require certain common video or sound resolutions for each and all of your actors? I mean, could one person be at 4K and the others at 720? Or do you just go with whatever's available?
I know my actors right now.
Okay.
So before I cast somebody in a particular role, I know who my actors are. And I am putting the person with the actor. As far as, how you would make it a little bit different, well, even a hat makes you a different person. Of course, the real hat that sometimes is used is this hat for murder mysteries. But the point is, what I'm trying to make is my actors actually get into character. They dress up, they put on costumes, they are there, and if you know Zoom, let's see, what are we doing? Okay, here we go. Sometimes you are an English detective. And sometimes you are an English detective, Paul, and naturally you must get into character there. The point is, you can make it more theatrical. With Zoom, you can create different backgrounds too, as you well know. The green screen, you put up a green screen and you're no longer in your office with the two license plates that say "Whodunit" and "I speak" on the wall. You are somebody and you're someplace else. So all of my actors get into character. Now here's the thing. Sometimes people don't want me to hire the actors. I pay my actors, by the way. I don't ask them to do this for nothing. They're professionals.
Right.
When you have professionals, you pay professionals. Simple as that. But sometimes they want to use their own people. So what I will suggest to them is recruit. There's always people in your organization that always wanted to be on the stage but never had the chance. Those are the people you recruit as suspects. And the thing is, too, they've got to get immersed in the role. What I mean by that is they have to know who they are. The worst thing that could happen in a mystery is for them to be asked a question and they'll say, wait a minute, and they have to look through their role, right?
Right.
Find out where the information is there. And well, I think this is, no. They've got to get into character and they've got to answer those questions as if they know exactly what they're talking about. You can't say, I don't have that information, or gee, I don't know if that's my long lost brother. No. If it's not there, it isn't. They've got to get into character. So that kind of answered your question, Paul. But what I do with my actors, of course, is we rehearse in advance. This mystery we're having this next weekend, we've already had 2 rehearsals. We're doing one final rehearsal before we actually perform in less than a week. And we're doing it again on Zoom. Our rehearsals are all on Zoom. And there is, I probably won't tell you that, because the ending of it, we actually had the client in on the last rehearsal because they wanted to see how it looked. And the very end of it, they kind of we did a little thing with one of my theatrical friends to make the arrest online. And we made the arrest from several, about 30 miles away. We made the arrest.
Very fun.
And it worked.
Very fun.
Did I answer the question?
I think so. I think so. We'll have some follow-ups, I'm sure. And that's, one of the things when you talk about the friends and picking the people that you want to be the suspects. What I've come out of this is I've started a branch of the mystery collection called Death by Design, and this was for the client that actually hired, that approached me about starting this. And so I came into this whole idea of Death by Design, to where I meet with the client month, if not more, in advance. And and I've got a notebook full of kind of skeletons of shows and of parties and mysteries. So I'll meet with the client and we'll kind of go over the characters, and we'll kind of go over and let them pick their friends that they think would fit those roles better. And then we kind of customize it to what they want. And then the only thing that I strictly say is you cannot pick the murderer. You can't pick the murderer. I'm not going to let them dictate who the murderer is, because there's a process in it, as I learned at the Mysteries on the Net workshop. There's a process, and you can't let them pick it. So let's talk a little bit more about the workshop. This workshop was we stayed at this bed and breakfast, and we got a brief little tour of Milwaukee, and I'd never been. I got my picture taken with the fawns and drank beer and ate cheese. It was awesome. But you get this book that is.
Oh yeah, get this book, right? We'll double up on it.
Yep,
right?
yep. You get this book, and it's a guidebook. It's a workbook, and this is the one that isn't filled out, because we had 2, so we didn't fill one out. We filled one out together. But this is a step-by-step process, and these are available on your website and also on Amazon, I believe. Correct?
They're actually pretty much every online bookseller you can buy them.
And it's called Jack Pachuta's Super Secret Murder Mystery Writing System. And as I mentioned earlier, I bought several books, and I bought some that are really thick. And this is the one. This is the one that I will use going forward. It really streamlines it and cuts through it just kind of tells you, this is what you do, this is what you do, and it allows you to kind of use your own creativity, as opposed to some of the other ones were just cookie cutters, where come up with a name and then come up with this. And so this was great. I liked it a lot. And then the workshop. This is what really was. And you talked about earlier. It's not just writing the story; it's coming up with all sorts. Every suspect gets a suspect a role. You get your role. So kind of talk about. I'm not going to show all of this because I don't want to tip anything, but kind of talk about what comes with the package. It's not just an outline. I mean, what you include in the package when someone buys one of these pre-prepared mysteries.
Well, the murder mystery kit. Well, if you do go on the website, there's a little button that says the kit. Each one of my mysteries will tell you exactly. But of course, you have instructions. 3 pages of instructions. Oh, it sounds like a lot. No, but it's step by step. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do this. It's every step you need to run that party. Then you have all the roles. Now, you have an abundance of information. But, Paul, you've read the roles, 10 minutes to read a role maybe?
Yeah.
10 to 12 minutes? Yeah, at most. And there's going to be information in there that when you first read it, you say, why do I need to know that? I'll tell you why you need to know that. I never know what people are going to ask, Paul. And so since I never know what people are going to ask, I give you a whole life history, including the names of your parents, city that you're from, if you have any siblings, because there are people, and again, everybody has a personal way of looking at things. In their head, this information is important. And if they don't have it, what they'll say is, well, gee, they don't have it, that must mean they're lying, therefore they're the guilty party. So I try to cover all bases. So every one of my roles has a whole life history of that character. All my roles are 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper, 3 panel documents, fold one side in, fold one side over. You've got it right there, Paul. And that's a roll. And then on the back of the roll, there's a, it says, say, at the very last page, turn it over, turn it the other way. Turn it around.
Here's
There's a dialogue.
Yep. Yeah. Here's what you'll say when you're asked questions. Yep.
That's right. Here's what you'll say when you're asked to speak. Yep. So at the very beginning, the mystery, each one, and it's just the back panel, and here's what you're going to say. And what it is your recollections of what happened at the mystery, what you thought of the deceased. People say, well, does the death occur in front of other people? Yes, I do those. When I do those, I prefer to use actors. Now, here's the reason why. Because if you're going to stage a murder, anything that happens, people who are looking at it regard as a clue. So, if your people who just got recruited to do this do something that shouldn't be done, the audience thinks it's a clue, and the whole shtick is blown. So, yes, when I am hired out and I use my actors, yes, I will stage the death in front of the audience. If I'm being hired to be the facilitator and using my client's actors, I don't do that because it requires rehearsal. And frequently, I send out the roles in advance, but I don't even meet those people till the night of the mystery.
Right.
Because again, I travel all over the place doing mysteries, and I will not meet the suspects until I get there. So I really don't have a chance to stage it. But that's the roles. There's also a series of clues, anywhere from 16 to 30 clues, little written clues, and those clues have information. Most of them, and Paul, you'll like this because you know this, most of them deal with motive. Why? Because the first thing people want to know is, why would they want to kill this person? In all of my mysteries, everybody has a motive. And people tend to do what Paul mentioned. They try to find the best motive. That's not the way you solve the case. But what it does is it gets people talking. So you have a clue, other people have clues. The idea is you share information because you're going to have a chance to question the suspects. And when you question the suspects, what do you base those questions on? Well, you base it upon the testimony at the beginning and upon the clues that have been handed out. So now you have information. And if you are thinking, right, if the gamesmanship sets in, there's information you're going to want to know. And that's where the questions come from. You question the suspects, and that's where the information comes in. Depending upon the mystery, there will be police reports, coroner's reports, last will and testament. On my wine and cheese mystery, which is called, are you ready for this? Death is a Cabernet, old chum. I hope there are a lot of groans out there in the audience right now. But there's also a wine label. The person that dies is a vintner, and he's a Cabernet king, right? He invents Cabernet wines, and there's a wine label that you put on the bottles of Cabernet, and on the label, on the front and the back, if you look closely, there are clues on the label.
That's one that I've read several times.
Yeah, so there are different things like that in the kit, and of course there's an answer sheet, and then there is the denouement, the French word, which is the ending. And by the way, the translation, I love the word because it's so mysterious, and all the mystery writers use it with the denouement. Denouement in French means the untying, right? All these things are tied together, but at the end, you untie them, and that's where you figure out who did it. So all those things are in the kit, plus there are invitations, there are little bits and pieces of other stuff, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
If you buy one of my kits, everything you need to run your mystery party is there, except, of course, for the costuming. It's hard to download a costume.
Right.
But other than that, there.
So you mentioned all the clues, and at the same time we had a question. One of my favorite parts of writing one is the clues. That's one of my favorite parts because every clue relates to motive. Well, as the writer and the facilitator of this, you want to steer people in different directions. You can't just tell them who the murderer is. You want to steer them. So you place red herrings around. So the question is, do you have a way to redirect groups that chase these red herrings? Do you and I'll talk about what we were planning on doing on the cruise ship with this, but you I want to hear your answer to. Do you have a way to redirect groups that chase red herrings?
Oh, I tell people I love the chaos at the beginning of a mystery. To me, the chaos is perfect. In other words, people are chasing all kinds of clues. However, what you do is you drop like the police reports, coroner's report, last will and testament, right? Any other information like that I have in the kit. Each of those does this. It goes, oh, okay, well, and you start narrowing in. And if you're following the clues, all those red herrings out here that you started with, if you follow the next clue that gets dropped, then you'll eliminate some of those red herrings. By the way, Paul, you watched my videos on YouTube, so you know that the term red herring, where that comes from. You know, my dear wife's from England, and as you know, they have what they used to have. They don't have them anymore. Fox hunts in England, and in the last century, farmers did not like fox hunts coming across their property because they would tear up crops, they would destroy the land, they would do really nasty things. But you know, the aristocracy is allowed to do that. So what the farmers would do was to go to the fishmonger, and they would buy the smelliest fish possible, and they would drag that fish through the fields so that when the hounds got to that smell, they'd be distracted by the smell of this outrageously stinky fish and go in a different direction. And of course, the smelliest fish you can buy at a fishmonger's is, what is it, Paul?
The red herring. There you go.
Red herring. Absolutely. That's where the term red herring comes from. Sometimes the origin of words has more of a meaning. But getting back to the question with the red herrings, I don't try to get people out of the red herrings. I let the clues do that. I let their questioning do that. You know, this is an investigation. At a certain point, I don't want to be like a school teacher that says, okay, kiddies, now I don't want you to go over here. I want you to go over here. Mm-hmm. If you really are serious about solving the case, you do that yourself.
Right.
You know, I provide you the opportunities to do that. I'm sorry if you missed that one, but you had the opportunity. And what I do find out, of course, is that people love to be the one to solve the case. Absolutely love it, because they are so much smarter than everybody else if they solve the case. So what I started doing, excuse me, I've got to reach for Watson over here. I'll show you Watson. He's on my videos too. This is Watson. But Watson has a little button, if I can get close to the camera. Yep. And you see what it says?
I solved the case.
It says,
yes.
I solved the case. What I have found, and these are about 1.5 inches round. When people say, what do you give out at the end of the mystery? Well, you know, most of the time I'm the hired gun. So I'm not going to give out stuff because that's cost me. However, these little buttons don't cost a heck of a lot. But they like it. You know why? Because for the rest of the evening, if they're in a group, they can walk around with this big button that says, I solved the case.
Right.
And I did one at a museum here, an art museum, and they did their own, I solved the murder at the museum. So even your clients, if they want to, they can do the button thing. And it's a little token, I know, but it's not so much what you give people, it's the notoriety and the identification that they were able to solve the case. So I tend to ramble. I can't help myself. After all, I am a writer and speaker and all that stuff.
No, it's great.
Did I answer the question?
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned you performed them in every direction on a compass. So I want to know, let's talk real quick about what I was, the plan on the cruise ship for and what I do for my murder mysteries, because all of my murder mysteries that I've written deal in the paranormal, and they typically deal with ghosts or hauntings or some sort of paranormal, and there's a Ouija board involved in all of them. And one of the outs, and my magician friends will appreciate that we always have outs. We always have to have a way to get out of something if it goes shithouse on us. One of the outs, if I lead these people in the direction, or they've led themselves in a direction that I need to get them back, is I control the spirit, right? I control the spirit, and so if they ask a question, I'm going to allow. If I feel like it's coming off the rails, I'm going to call everyone, rein everybody in for our let's ask the ghosts. You know, we're going to contact a ghost, and we're going to, whether the ghost is just spirit in general, or it's the ghost of the deceased, or it's the ghost of the man who owned the house, or whatever. That's up to the specific party. But I allow them to ask questions, and sometimes the ghost won't answer. If it's did so-and-so do it, it's not going to answer. But if I feel like I need to steer them back in direction, I can kind of mold the questions that they ask, and that was something that we had talked about on doing the ghost boat, the ghost trip, was having one night kind of where it's ghosty, and we contact the ghost. I think the original plot was a Blackbeard plot, and where we were gonna talk to the ghost of Blackbeard or the ghost of one of his victims, and kind of talk and kind of we could bring people back. Now, what we were talking about on the ship was not going to be a 2.5 hour murder mystery. It was going to be a several day mystery with clues written into some excursions and clues written in throughout the several days, and that's something that I have not given up on this, although the gods were against us this year, and with hurricanes and corona and all the things that had come out. I think they were against us, but we're going to get this done one of these days.
I hope so. And we had 2 of them that had to be repositioned and rescheduled. But tell everybody what we were calling this thing, Paul.
Well, it's mysteryboat.com. Is that the
website? We were calling it. I hope everybody's writing this down. The Magical Mystery Cruise.
Right. Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Beatles. I hope that the ghosts of the Beatles aren't floating
well,
around.
they'll maybe that's why this whole thing with Shithouse is the Beatles ghosts are mad at us for stealing that. So what I want to ask about, and we're coming up on the halfway point. So after this question, we can take a little break, and I'll finish the housekeeping. And I've got some really fun, exciting announcements of some of the upcoming shows that have just come together in the last couple days. I want to know about, and you can think about this if you want to take a break and come back after the break in this. You said you've on every point of the compass you've done these, facilitated these, and participated in these. Me and my magician performing friends, whenever we sit around, we always kind of talk about horror stories, and we talk about when things went off the rails and some of the worst case scenarios. Do you have any of those right off the top of your head? That some of the worst case scenarios in these, and then how you brought everybody back into the fold?
Well, bringing them back is the hard part. But I can tell you my worst case scenario. I won't mention the client, and I won't mention where it occurred. But I was booked to do a murder mystery in the evening for a particular professional group that was having a professional meeting at a world-class golf course. And fine, I'll do that. What they didn't tell me was that all of them had been playing golf all day with the beer cart.
Yep.
And they came in, and before I was to go on, they had the wonderful gourmet 7-course meal and a musical group. And finally, now we're going to solve a murder mystery.
Right.
Right, exactly. That's
every one of my performer friends out there watching it is doing this right now, saying, yep.
Yeah. So that needless to say, I took my check, thanked them very much, and went home.
I was wedged in between. I had a 15-minute mind reading act wedged between belly dancers and a band, and an open bar. And I'll tell you what, they did not want to listen to some smart-ass mind reader. They were on the belly dancers, and they wanted the band. They were not into me one bit. It was tough. It was the longest 15 minutes of my life. So, all right. Well, let's take a little bit of break. If you need to refill your glass, or if you want to hang tight, I'm going to go over a few little some things. And so, do you want you all right?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll put on my neutral screen, and you do your little bit, and I'll come back in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Perfect. All right. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Jack. So a couple updates. We've got, again, next week is the Booze and Bourbon Podcast Gals on. I'm really looking forward to that. My friend Matt at Tower 56 gave me a couple bottles of his booze. I sent it to him in Canada, so we're going to be drinking booze from Greeley, Colorado on the podcast. Or, I'm sorry, on the show with the Podcast Girls next week. On July 26th, we've got Brian Kane. Brian is a high priest in the Alexandrian Order of Witchcraft. He sent me. I just recently got his book. I've started reading this, and it's. I'm really looking forward to having Brian on. Brian is in Louisiana, and we have he's in New Orleans, and we have a lot of mutual friends, and I'm looking forward to that. Then August 2nd, I have Sean Branney, who is the executive director of the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. On the 9th is Brandon Hodge from the Mysterious Planchette. He's on. I was flipping around. Oddly enough, I've been working with Brandon on this for a couple weeks, and last night I was flipping around looking at the old the mysteries at the museum on Patience Worth, and we'll talk about Patience Worth for sure. And he's their expert on Patience Worth. I'm really looking forward to that. I mentioned earlier that I'm going to do a little bit of traveling. I've got some upheaval going on in my personal life, so I'm going to take a few weeks and just drive out to see some friends and see some things that I've wanted to see. So on August 16th, I'm not going to have a show. That's going to be a travel day, and I don't know. I may put a performance on. I've got a couple audio or a couple video performance of mine. I may put that on, or I may have a friend fill in. We'll see. On August 23rd, I'm going to be in New Orleans. And we're gonna do this live from New Orleans, and I've got a few friends lined up. I'm also gonna do a live performance of the new seance routine, some of the new seance pieces of the new seance show. August 30th, I'm working on something for fun on August 30th. I did yesterday get a confirmation from a man named Jake Anderson, who runs the website ghostdiaries.com, and he's also Ghost Diaries on Facebook. He's right now working on a documentary called What Happened to Elisa Lam. Now, if you're not familiar with the Elisa Lam story, please go check it out. Check it out. The Elisa Lam story is crazy. So it happened at the Cecil Hotel in LA, and it is a mystery that is my friend James Corbin says he's so excited he thinks we're going to solve it that day. So I'm excited. Then I also want to mention Patreon. The Patreon is still going. I recently spent a couple days in Roswell this week, and I made some great friends down there, and I met some people that I'm very excited that to get back and do some performances and some more research down there. So I brought back a big box of relics from Roswell. Anybody who is a sponsor on Patreon as of August 1st, I'm going to mail something out to them just as a thanks for supporting. So if you go to patreon.com and look up the Mystery Collection, check that out. So then I think that's about it. The Patreon, I want to talk about the sharing this. This has been, I've lost 40 some shows in this, and don't see a lot of people, don't get a lot of communication with a lot of my pals. And so this really has been a fun deal, and I appreciate all of you guys that tune in and come see what the funny stuff that I've got going in my life, and the crazy fun people that I've met. I like to brag that I have a friend in every city, and that I've got friends that are way cooler than me. I think it was, I don't know who the politician was that said, if you are the smartest person in the room, go to another room. Well, I love to know that I am one of the least interesting people in my group of friends, and I'm pretty interesting, and I've got way more interesting people. Like Jack's back, so we'll get back with that. But I just want to give everybody a quick thanks, and I appreciate you guys coming and tuning into this. And yes, John Bentley, I did cut my own hair, and I got a professional to cut it, and I am drinking water today. So we'll talk about that later. So all right, so let's kind of get back on track here with this. So this is a question that I ask everybody, and this may take us down a different route than we originally planned on going. I always ask this show deals with, my show, the Mystery Collection show, and most of my life deals with the paranormal or the occult or hauntings and that the crazy kind of scary stuff. You've written about murder. You've performed these. What scares you? What scares Jack? What is something that is too far? You talked earlier about you can't do a murder for kids. That they'll ask for. What else? What are some topics that are too much, that cross the line? I came in with this idea where very, very heavy on the occult, and you kind of helped me round it back and suggested I not use the word occult as often, and not talk about God, talk about the gods, more. And so it's and there are audiences that will hire me because I talk about the occult, and because I talk about God, and because I talk about it. But on the overall, what is too much? What crosses a line for you personally and professionally, and what are you as an individual scared of?
Well, that's a big question, Paul.
Yep.
Let me tell you when talk about crossing the line. None of my mysteries have gore. There's no blood. It's sort of the nice, neat little Agatha Christie mysteries. To me, crossing the line is when you do something really nasty to someone who's really nice. That crosses the line with the mystery to me.
Okay.
What you're going to find is that with my mysteries, the cause of death, for the most part, is not gory, and the person is always a nasty individual. Those kinds of mysteries lead people to think about the whole process as opposed to the individual. That kind of goes a little bit too far. And you mentioned the thing about God versus gods. And this has nothing to do with anybody's religious persuasion. Everybody has personal beliefs. And when those beliefs are brought into any kind of event, it's a downer, I think, for the event. That people have to, I have to take people away from those kind of things, because it gets people into a whole different realm. It takes them away from what I'm doing for a living and what you do for a living. It takes them to something else, and I don't want to get there. I want to keep people focused. As far as a fear, well, I've been a professional speaker for a long time, doing murder mysteries for a heck of a long time. Very rarely do I have nothing to say, but there are times when I'm doing a theatrical performance, and I don't care if you've rehearsed 20 times, the line doesn't come, and you go, oh. The nice thing about that is, and it's not stage fright or anything else. It's just sometimes you draw a blank. And I'm sure it's happened to you too, Paul. You just draw a blank. If you're working with a group of professionals, your group takes you through that blank period. And that's why it's nice to work with professional actors, because we've all been there. So I'm not sure if that totally answered your question, Paul. I didn't go into snakes, spiders, and all kinds of nasty things, because I live in the wilds of Wisconsin. We have snakes and spiders here, so I see them quite a bit. But those kinds of things are more performance-related issues. And I think as a professional, we want to maximize our performance, not offend anyone, but not get into topics that also might offend our audience.
Right.
And those things I always concern myself with.
And I guess where I'm customizing my shows is it allows me to figure out how my limits and where I can go. And there, as I mentioned, there are people that will hire me because of the topics I talk about and the topics I research. And there are people that will hire me and say, I did a show for a genealogical society, and they just said, hey, listen, we prefer no ghosts. And I said, okay, I that's easy. So we got a question. Can you explain more about the online workshop and how it works? Does it teach you how to do Zoom and in-person murder mysteries?
No, what it does, the online workshop teaches you how to write your murder mystery. Now, as you well know, Paul, I'm one of these people that if you ask a question, I tend to answer the question even if it's not in the script. I just kind of go for it. So I would be happy to answer those kinds of questions. If I get something, well, let me talk about the workshop. What I will do is give you 6 hours of my time. When I say 6 hours, here's what it means. It means that in the last class I had 5 people. And for the most part, we met together. I think 4 of those times we were all together as a group, but I also give you individual hours. So I had 2 individual hours to fine-tune the script and to also work with you. But as you well know, Paul, I don't always stick to the 2 hours. I mean, if I'm on a topic, we have to get something done, we get it done. So what I'm giving you is 6 hours of my time, either in a group setting with other mystery writers or my own personal time, to get you to write your own mystery. And here's the thing. Not only do we have this wonderful hard copy of my workbook, I have a digital copy of it too. So when you sign up for the workshop, you get a digital copy of my workbook. And you can download it and follow along as we go through everything. You also get a free mystery kit. It's a downloadable digital file. Now, they sell from $39 up to $100 online. But you get a free mystery as part of it. And then there's the interaction. What I have found, I do like it when I have, I had 5 people last time. It's not just me that teaches everybody.
Right.
All the students teach each other. Right? Because you put out a topic and you start to brainstorm, and you brainstorm names, you brainstorm scenarios. So you are not working in a vacuum. I think that's always an advantage when you do something like this, that you're not there by yourself. Sometimes when you're by yourself, you think it's great, then you put it out on the table and people go, oh, really? And you realize that it's not as great as you think it is. Or it's a great idea and now we're going to embellish it. So what you get with my online mystery writing is 6 hours of time, either with other people or with me, in which to fine-tune that mystery. Some people come with an idea of what they want to write. Other people don't come with an idea and they figure it out. Some people come with an idea and, like Paul, they kind of toss half of it out and say, okay.
Well, actually, what the idea that I came with has now turned into 3. I mean, because it was so the world was so big, it has turned into three different avenues. So that helped quite a bit. So the workshop that we attended, it was us and then another set of women from, I think they were from Minnesota. And
yes,
they were very kind, and we had a great time. We all had a great time. But I one of the things that really kind of stuck with me was the drastic difference in where they were going with what they did and where I was going with what I did. I think they had performed them, and they were putting these together. If I remember, they were performing these or putting these together for church singles groups. I think that was kind of their. And so they were talking about great, I think they had an idea for a Santa Claus one. I think the one we workshopped was an elf died, an elf was stealing from Santa or something. And we workshopped it, we had a great time. And then I come in with this demon-possessed occult item had been transferred to a secret society, and it was just the difference between the two was very fun, and we had a great time kind of picking it apart, and I had a fun time. But I would highly recommend anybody that wants to do. While we can't do the in-person ones right now, but I would when that opens up, I would highly recommend it. For my friends out there that are mystery performers that do the kind of shows that I do. This will help you as well. The format of this, whether you're going to actually perform and put together your own mystery parties, this will help. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think is there anything else you want to add about the online?
Well, there is something I do want to add. It's not so much the online, although I'd love to see people via Zoom online to write their own mysteries. And that is that the research that goes into the mysteries. What I have found, for instance, poison's a very popular thing. But you can look up poisonous plants, poisonous snakes. I don't invent facts.
Right.
Because invariably somebody in your audience knows the real fact. I don't invent a snake that has this super hyper poisonous ability because that snake doesn't exist. I'm going to go online and find out what the snakes are, what kind of poison it is, what kind of impact it has on the body. I'm going to use real facts. That way, someone who really does know about it, they will appreciate the fact that it does make sense. The other thing too is if you're going to use a specific city. Now, I have used specific cities, and I'll give you an example of that in a second. Most of the time, I'll make up my cities. Here's the reason why: if people have been to that city or they're from that city, they know every street corner there. So when you start talking about where something happened or what the building is like, they're going to question you because, no, there's nothing over there on that side of town.
Right.
Well, the one that I'm going to mention that was a real city, and that's the one that if you go to my website, it's the Al Capone mystery. Because I mentioned that I had done a mystery in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Well, I was commissioned by a group called Airline Hotels Limited of Canada to write an Al Capone mystery around Moose Jaw. And apparently, as the legend goes, if you want to call it a legend, if you go to Moose Jaw, there are all kinds of pictures of Al Capone. Capone supposedly used to buy his booze in Moose Jaw, right? And then he would ship it down to the States by the Canadian National Railway and the Great Grand Trunk Line through the Milwaukee Road down into Chicago. That really happened. So in my mystery, there are 30 characters. It was a corporate meeting, and yes, they called me back to facilitate it. I went to Moose Jaw twice. And what I did find out is you can't get there from here, right? I mean, I used to go to Singapore to do seminars. It was faster to go to Singapore than to go to Moose Jaw, but I digress. There are tunnels underneath the city of Moose Jaw, and we did the mystery in the tunnels of Moose Jaw.
Very cool.
So we started off on one side of the street in a tavern that supposedly Al Capone used to be in, went through a secret passage, literally a secret passage, to the back of the simulated office for Al Capone, down underneath the streets, and ended the mystery on the other side of the street. So, if you buy that mystery, if you go see that mystery, it's based on real facts. Half of the characters, 15 to 30 characters, I changed the names to protect the innocent. Where have we heard that before? But the half of the characters were real people that lived and worked in Moose Jaw. But I had to research them. I actually had to go online. I went to Moose Jaw, and I looked everything up about Moose Jaw, and I wrote the mystery around Moose Jaw. I have another client that was having a meeting in Kansas City and wanted every one of the characters to be a real person in Kansas City. So I had to invent a time machine to bring all these historical people back so that they were on stage, and somebody committed a murder with one of the other suspects, and I had to work the plot around that. So if indeed you have to write about a particular city or a particular area, you got to get your facts correct,
right?
Or they will be challenged.
Well, yeah, you never know who's in your audience. I don't know if you remember the show that I did at the Brunder. I do a routine on Wilbur French with W.D. French, who's a local thing, the man that was hung. I had Keith Olson on a couple weeks ago, who is writing the book on W.D. French. He was a police investigator for 40 years in this county, and he was writing the book. Well, the man that W.D. French had killed was named Woodbury, and we were talking about it. All of a sudden, it pops up, and we've got Woodbury's great-great-granddaughter watching. And it's like, whoa, so we gotta, and so where I come from is, Keith is writing the story. He's writing the factual account as an investigator. Well, I operate under the Mark Twain law that never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So there's always kind of, I always try to base all of my routines in fact. Well, just to make them Google proof, to make it to where people remember enough about the facts, but then I take the poetic license with them. So that's I would recommend anybody take this if you want to get started with it. Get a hold of Jack and buy the book, and start there. If you don't want to start with the whole class, but I would recommend doing it. We had a blast, and it really has been something that has had a lot. So what's next? What are some things that you are that are in the on deck for say? What are some things that you're working on that are some ideas for shows? Or you don't have to tip a whole bunch of secrets, but what's 2000? We're gonna wipe 2020 off, and so what does 2021 look like for you?
Well, Paul, I like you am always trying to think of new ideas, and the new ideas, of course, that came around with the whole coronavirus thing was the online mystery workshop and the online facilitation. So those two websites are brand new. I mean, they went up after the coronavirus hit, and I actually couldn't physically go out and do things. Since I've also put up 2 more books on Amazon. You can buy my kits as books, where you take the book apart and all of the things are in there. Some people don't like digital downloads, right? Plus, I ran out of ink running off your kit. Okay, I've had that. Trust me. So what I do is I sell them via Amazon, and the whole kit is there. All you do is take the book apart, and you can sell it. Well, I've uploaded 2 more mysteries onto Amazon since the coronavirus has started. And with this whole thing that's happened to me just this week, where I had a mother call me and wanted to have a mystery party for her daughter, I am now going to put up, this is on my list, put up a new site facilitating kids' mysteries on site. Now, in this one, I'm not going to do the facilitation because, like I said, I'm not a kid anymore. But I have 2 wonderful actresses that I have worked with who are perfect to do the facilitation. So I'm going to get that one out there too. And they know Zoom, and they will all do it on Zoom. So anything that I could transfer to the online environment like we are doing here, that's my goal for what's coming up. I, like you, have bookings, live mysteries with actors that have been postponed. I don't want to say canceled. I want to be positive about this. They've been postponed. We've already been in rehearsal with some of them, and they just can't happen right now, as you well know. So I've got to keep that routine going. Plus, if you take a look at my kits online, I have sometimes what I call party kit, and then I have a theatrical kit. The theatrical kit is meant for the stage. The party kits are not. The theatrical kit requires actors. The party kits or the home kits do not. I want to put more theatrical kits up, so I'm going to be taking those mysteries that are the home kits and turning them into actual theatrical performances.
Very cool.
So that when we come back from the coronavirus thing, I'm going to have more offerings that could be put on stage. What I have found, and this is nothing new, that it's a whole different environment, and when you have a big group, and I've done theater in the round. My mystery called Murder is on the Air. It's a spoof of the I Love Lucy show. The star is named Lizzie Bell. You get that, yep, Lizzie Bell. Right, with the Lizzie show. And during the course of the live TV broadcast in the 1950s, of course, someone dies during the live broadcast of the show. That was written for the stage. I have no home version of that, but what I find is when I go down to write a theatrical script, the mindset changes, and it's a whole different environment and a whole different audience. I performed that at 2 different places. We did a theater in the round. We sold out 2 performances of 250 people.
Great.
And then I did it as a fundraiser for a local public broadcasting station in their studio. This was kind of fun because, right, the setting was a TV studio in the 1950s. So we did it in a TV studio.
Very cool.
And that was kind of fun. So, in effect, it's expanding the services. Another thing that little footnote with the whole thing with the social distancing. What I am finding is during this period of time, people aren't sure what to do. Their whole routine is broken. It's the perfect time for learning. It's the perfect time for establishing a new skill, to expanding what you do. So, the mystery writing workshop is one thing, but just taking what you know and doing this with it, expand the boundaries of it and try something else. This is the time to do it, because once this whole thing is over, you're back to a routine and you're not going to do it again. Why not take the time?
Oh, absolutely, the book is a great start, and then the online. Well, and I lead people to as an introduction to your Facebook. To your YouTube videos. It's kind of, and you filmed at the Brumder, so they can kind of get a view of that as well. So where do you get the ideas for these things? The show, the cabaret one is amazing. The Cabernet one, is amazing. That's one that you talk about people. I printed it. I printed it on. I put it on a thumb drive and took it to Kinko's and printed it so I'd have it and bound it. So I would have it because I'm a reader like this as well. So, so I love that idea. The idea of being at a winery. I've actually had a client ask if I could do one that was based around whiskey, and I thought, well, I could maybe mold and do. But so where do you get the ideas for them? Do you see things on the news? You watch some of the mystery shows on TV, and all they do is just steal headlines and steal things out of the news. Where do you have a stockpile of lists, or do you just kind of, as they come to you make a?
Well, let me tell you, when you're in this business, what you find is that very rarely does somebody call and ask for a specific title. They will say, I want to have a mystery at Christmas. Do you have a Christmas mystery? Right? So if you look at my site, you're going to find that I have every major holiday covered. Right? Starting at Valentine's Day to St. Patrick's Day to Mardi Gras to 4th of July. Because in general, and it's a general statement, people will, when they get together, they will do a mystery around a holiday theme. The 4th of July was just over. I sold some of the 4th of July mysteries. Coming up, of course, is Halloween. I've got 2 Halloween mysteries.
We're skipping here a little bit. Well, are you still? I think we've lost you. You're frozen up there, Jack.
And you're frozen up too, Paul.
Okay.
Maybe that's how we look, Paul. Maybe we really are frozen.
Yeah. I had Bell's palsy once, so I was half that way. So.
You're moving now. Am I moving yet or not?
Yeah. No, we're good. We're good.
Oh, good. Okay. So, but in between all of those, where do you get ideas? People ask me that all the time. I really can't answer that. There'll be times when you're driving along and you're going, oh, that would be an interesting one. And you start to flesh it out in your head right before you put it down on paper. But what I try to do, and again, this is a business for me, I'm trying to cover the bases that I think people would like. But the thing like Murder is on the Air, that's the spoof of I Love Lucy. That was just kind of a fun little thing. You're up late watching an old I Love Lucy show and going, gee, what would happen if somebody really died on TV, right? And it wasn't just a death, it was a murder. And that's kind of how that would evolve. I've got a golf mystery because during the summer, especially this time of year, golf is very popular. In fact, the mystery that I'm doing later this week, Cyber, is a golf mystery. It's we're going to do the golf course. Ready for this title? I love titles, by the way, Paul, as you well know.
Yes.
This one is called Murder is Par for the Course.
There you go.
But a lot of my people like the title I have for my Easter mystery, which is Lurking Down the Bunny Trail.
There you go.
So, I prefer a smile or a groan to a belly laugh.
I am a aficionado of dad jokes, so those are great. So you're also an artist. You're also a painter, I believe. Is that right?
I'm a printmaker.
A printmaker. Okay, so talk a little bit about some of the other outlets. I mean, the murder mystery is a huge outlet of creative energies and creative efforts. What are some of the other outlets of your creative passions that you explore?
Are you ready for another website, Paul? You know, I'm full of websites.
You know what you need, Jack, is you need a website, www.jackswebsites.com, and it just lists all of them. There you go.
If people want to go to Art Badger, and the reason for Badger is because I'm in the Badger state, and also nobody can spell Pachuta. So, but they can always remember Art and the Badger state. So artbadger.com, that's my prints. I've always been able to draw, you know, since I was little, I was always able to draw. But I found a local master artist named Paul Yank. Brilliant artist. I could go down the line of what he's done, but he used to work with Frank Lloyd Wright. He used to get into Taliesin over in Spring Green, Wisconsin. He didn't have to pay because he was working there. So you know, he's a master artist, and I got into printmaking with him. And so the routine that I use is his routine. So and I know I do the murder mysteries. I was also the president of the League of Milwaukee Artists for 4 years. They elected me president. Can you believe that? You know, little shy retired me. I'm president of this league for 4 years. But it's an outlet. I think people who have creativity or who do things like this, they're good at more than one thing. It's not just one thing. You're good at different things too, Paul. I mean, I'm
really debating if I'm good at anything right now, Jack. So we'll have to. That's up for debate.
Well, we'll have a vote later on.
Yeah.
Tell you fair. You know, this is the time for polling right now.
Yeah.
If you will. But yeah, I do that. You know, I like the art. I like the writing. One of my license plates back here is the one I had in my car, who done it, WHOTNT. My new license plate is I write, because right now I am also finishing off a book about, ready for this, the former naval attaché to Moscow. He died. He was buried in Arlington. I was there at his interment. His family asked me to write the book of his life.
Awesome. That's very cool.
So, it had nothing to do with mysteries. It has nothing to do with art, but I'm writing. And one of the other goals that I already have I have another URL for you, Paul, but it's not there yet. When I was doing this, I thought, you know what? This is kind of a nice routine also, doing the writing. So I have registered, I own ghostwritingpros.com. PROS, ghostwritingpros.com. And I have friends that are also writers. I've got about 4 people who are also writers who want to be part of that. So that's another venue, right? It's another way of doing business. It ties in with the things I'm doing, but it takes me off in a little bit different direction. And it isn't always mysteries.
Right.
It's right.
Right.
So that kind of answers your question. I don't think, you know, my wife would tell you I kind of wake up screaming at nights about ideas that I have, and then she'll say roll over and go back to sleep until the next one hits, because they just kind of hit, and you kind of go with them and you run with them. And one thing I have found is that when you have an idea, run with it. It doesn't mean you can't come back to what you were doing, but once the creative juices start to flow, you got to go in that stream with them. You can't say, okay, I'll get back to that later. You know what? Later never comes. If you think about something that is on the creative end and you start to go with it, you're going to find also different things that are attached to it, and you get even a better idea. If you're going to get back to it, you never will. That's my experience.
Yeah.
You know, you write it down and you put it on a bulletin board, and it stays on a bulletin board for the next 2 years. You got to go with it right now.
Yep, absolutely.
That's how I write my mystery too, Paul. I get an idea for a mystery, and I will start to write it right away.
Yeah.
And theoretically, in most cases, I will write it within a few weeks after I get the idea, because if I let the idea die, it tends to sit there for a while, and I'll always get back to it. Where have we heard that before, Paul?
Well, yeah, right. Well, so in the writing process, and I'm drawing parallels to what I do in the performing process. I have a small group of like a test audience, and I've got a small group of some magicians, some not magicians, and I'll call them together and I'll say, okay, watch, and I'll run it past them several times. What is your editing process like? I mean, I imagine there's times that you have this idea on paper that is great, but what happens when you perform it live and it just doesn't, it's not hitting where you need it to hit? So do you have a target, or do you have a test group, or do you have a group of consultants that you go to? What is your editing process like?
Well, when you talk about a test group, my friends, right?
Yeah.
I'll run my mystery writing for my friends. And
Now, will you
or
perform
my-
it? I mean, will you run it as if it's happening, or will they just? Will you?
Yes,
Okay.
I
Okay.
would run it as if I'm selling it. And my friends know what I'm doing, and they really do want to get involved. They kind of have a good time. I don't charge them, obviously. I just give them the roles. I assign the roles, and I go through all that kind of good stuff. And I'm sure you found this too, that when I am performing, you come out with a line that you didn't even know you were going to say.
every show, yes.
And you get the reaction, you get the laughter, or you get the groans, and you go, "Oh, good." Another programmed ad lib, if you know what I mean. It's just like, "Oh yeah, okay." I want to make it sound like I just made that up, but I'm going to use it.
Oh, some of my best lines have come that way, and then they go into the show right away. They go into the show right away, and they're always there.
Yeah, yeah, and so that thing keeps evolving. Anytime I do any kind of a performance, it evolves. I learn something at every performance, because when you're doing the murder mysteries like this, and it's a live performance, and I'm interacting with the audience constantly. I used to tell people at the end I do my Phil Donahue routine and go from table to table. Oh well, Phil Donahue, nobody knows who that is anymore. I hate to say Maury Povich or Jerry Springer, because that's not kind of my style. But I go from table to table, and I will get comments from the audience about who done it, why they do it, how they do it. I always have the audience give their own solutions. I never take the cards and read their solutions.
Right.
I let them give their own solutions, because I interact with them. And I won't tell you what mystery, but I'll tell you what actually did happen. In one of my mysteries, the victim is poisoned, and it is nuts mixed in with a bowl, and they are poisonous. And if you looked up the nuts that I use, they really are poisonous, and they're mixed in with a bowl of nuts. And so I went around table to table, and of course every table has to get a spokesperson. This was a mature lady, probably about my age. We're all mature with gray hair. Maybe you're getting there too, Paul.
Oh, it's gray. It's been gray. It's been graying since I was 25 years old.
They all say that, Paul. But that's so we went around, and she got the right answer, and I said, "And how did he or she do it?" And she said, "Now this is a crowded room, right?" She said, "Somebody tampered with his nuts," and the whole crowd just roared with laughter. First of all, the line, but then it was the person who was delivering it without trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Right? She was being totally serious, but it took a while to calm them down. It was great. But see, I like those kinds of audience reactions. That's why I never deliver. I never ask, or I never read cards to say, "Who do you think did it?" I let them give me the solution, because it's the interaction with the audience that helps make the performance. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely. And there's been times that I'm doing a show and I get something, a reaction or an answer from a spectator, and I like that better than what I had done. I like that better. And so my follow up on that is, have you ever heard an explanation from the audience that you thought, "Oh man, that's actually a better explanation"? I mean, and use some of the feedback from the audience in either revision of that performance or that piece, or in future. I mean, it'd be hard not to. It'd be hard not to take some of that and work on it and keep it for future. But I imagine you get a lot of feedback from the audience that you appreciate, and you think, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to work on that."
Well, I'll give you another example of that. In one of my mysteries, the guilty party ends up being a Scotsman, right? And this is a theatrical performance, so I was using actors. And during the rehearsal of me arresting him, he said to me, "You mean I'm not going to get away scot-free?" He had lived it.
There you go.
And I went, "That's it."
Which most of the time probably is a disaster when you guys start ad-libbing stuff, but sometimes it works out.
But that was during a rehearsal, so that
Oh,
was
okay. Yeah.
So what I did was obviously I incorporated it into the show, and that was how I ended it. "You're not going to get away scot-free," and of course I got the appropriate chuckle and groan.
Right.
And the chuckle and groan to me is much better, like I said, than the belly laugh.
Well, on that note, we just got a question about actors. So, how many actors do you use? I realize that some scripts involve more or less, but what's your average? And how much rehearsal time do you require?
I minimum 6, I go up to 12.
Okay.
Depends upon the script, right? And the rehearsal time, we will normally have at least two. The first rehearsal's a read through, and we will fine tune exactly who the characters are. And wait, if you've been in theater, you understand what I'm talking about. You sit there with the script and you read through the script. The second rehearsal, you can still use the script, but we block it out. We walk through it. You know, we tell the actors where to go and what to do, and we block it out. If we can, we'll do it at the venue we're performing. We can't always do that. I've got a client in Green Bay. I'm in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. Lambeau Field, of course, great, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I actually had Mike McCarthy at one of my performances in Green Bay, along with the mayor and the police chief.
He's now Mike McCarthy's now a Bronco coach. He's coach for one of the coaches for the Denver Broncos. Isn't he I think he's our offensive line coach.
Well, actually, he was just hired as the head coach with Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, okay. Then I'm thinking of somebody else.
Yeah. But so we have the whole city of Green Bay there, and sometimes what we have to do, I will visit the venue in advance, and I will take pictures of it or video of it, and I'll show the actors that, because we're 110 miles away from Green Bay, right? Yeah, and I will show them that. Then we block it out, showing them what the venue is going to be like. Then at the third rehearsal, it's a dress rehearsal. I hire a costume or two. And when I do a theatrical performance, it's a theatrical performance.
Right,
It's
absolutely.
what my clients expect. So it's a theatrical performance. So we'll do a full dress rehearsal, and then by that time, you got to know your lines. Hopefully, by the way, sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. And then we get to the venue several hours in advance, and then we run through it at the venue once or twice before the performance. So the answer is 3 times before the performance, and then get to the venue early and really see the venue, and block it out. Now, when I'm doing a theatrical performance, I don't get super complicated. I can't get super complicated. I have no control over the other venue. Well, there are some exceptions. There's a little theater down the street where we get Murderers on the Air. We have some control there. But if I'm being hired to go to a distance and take the actors with me, we have to improvise quite a bit on site. That's why if I'm doing a live performance, I want professionals. I want people who are used to being flexible. That if they get there and it's not exactly like it's supposed to be, they know how to work around it.
Right.
The other thing I like to, I mentioned this before, is that and look, actors forget lines. It happens all the time. If you use people that are too amateurish, they don't know what to do when things don't go what's supposed to happen, right? When things go a little bit awry. If you use professionals, they know how to get around it. They can keep the plot going. They can keep the mystery going. So the audience might be a little bit aware of it, but it's not going to stop everything dead in its tracks. But getting back again to the answer, is 3 rehearsals, 1 rehearsal at the venue, and then break a leg, man, we're on.
So that those obviously are not for for the budget-minded party. I mean, to hire a dozen actors, professional actors, and 3 rehearsals.
We're talking pretty. Well, I got to pay my actors.
No, I understand, and hey, trust me, you're getting no argument out of me. But what I'm saying is that so the let's talk a little bit about the range of the products you provide in that. So obviously the hiring 12 actors and having 3 performances, or I'm sorry, 3 rehearsals is more of a corporate event. It's more of a big corporate event. It's not happening in somebody's living room. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But what is what are the highs and lows of the budgets for people that want to hire you to facilitate? Now, the facilitation is a different business than the teaching people how to write their own or just downloading them off of your website and then taking those instructions and running. The facilitation of them is a much bigger process. So, fire away.
Right. Well, there are 3 categories. The first one is what you said. You can download my mysteries. You can do them on your own. The whole kit is there. And I have sold my mysteries on 6 continents. And I've had an inquiry from a base in Antarctica. That's number 7. No penguin yet has bought a mystery from me. Maybe I should write a penguin murder mystery. But that's one category. Second category is hire me to facilitate. If anybody wants to call me, I would tell you my exorbitant fees. That's okay. I don't mind that. But I have a local fee, and I have a fee that I charge out of state. And obviously, when I say local, my criteria for that is if I can drive home at night and sleep in my own bed, I'm local. If I have to stay overnight, I'm out of state. right? I charge you an extra X amount of dollars. The third category is the theatrical production. So I do all three. Either you can download my mystery and do it on your own, and you'll give me a call if you have any questions. I'm a nice guy about that one. If you want me to facilitate, I'd be happy to do that. And my Mystery Party Pros, I send them leads. That other website I mentioned. These are people that actually come to here, to the wonderful Cedarburg, Wisconsin, and stay in my Subterranean World headquarters, and we go through how to run a murder mystery. We spend 3 days together. And what I do with that program is we have a local art museum, a local cultural center. I provide them with a murder mystery facilitator, not the whole cast. And my Mystery Party Pros actually run a mystery here in Cedarburg with a local cast who are not professionals, but people that, you know how you have people that get on the stage and the whole bit. So that's the final part of that training. And again, the third one is the full-blown theatrical production. And yeah, it's corporate events, but it's also fundraisers. My big client in Green Bay is a community shelter. And we attract 250 to 300 people every year. This is their annual biggest fundraiser of the year.
Wow.
They charge like 125 to 150 bucks a ticket. Okay? And they attract the glitterata of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Now, there really are, purely 100,000 people, but and Lambeau Field seats 76,000.
Right.
So you can imagine how many people are in the streets on game day. But so that's a full-blown theatrical production. Two of the things that I've had to postpone are theatrical productions because of the coronavirus. And one of them is for another organization in Indiana that and this is a kind of a fourth dynamic, which I don't do very often. They are hiring the actors, but I'm coming in a day early to work with the actors.
Gotcha.
Okay? So I'm sending out the script to the actors, and this one got postponed. I'm sending out the script to the actors and then coming in a day early to block it out in the venue where we're going to perform. And of course, I'm charging them extra for that. But when I mentioned what it would cost for me to bring my own actors along, I get that usual pause, the pause I'm talking about, Paul. And so we negotiated this, and this is how we're going to handle it. So that's kind of a fourth option. It's one that I prefer not to do because if I'm going to use actors, I know my actors.
Right.
I know who they are. I know what they can do. I know what roles they fit in. So they're all different categories. And those services evolve, as many things evolve over the years. It started off with the downloadable kits. And I also do the mystery training, too, which is we solve the case and then process it into team building, communications, negotiations, a variety of skills that you use every day in the workplace, but we do it in a fun way. So you're learning things without really feeling like you're doing this intense seminar by this professional guy who's coming in and going to cram your brain full of information. It's a fun event, and I make it light. I don't make it serious when I'm processing. I make it a very light event. So there are different categories of what you can do. And yes, it starts off with the real basic kit. I've got a facilitation fee. If you're going to go into the professionals and do a full-blown theatrical production, you're talking thousands. That's
absolutely. Well, and that's one of the things that I find, especially in magic, and that the creative people really struggle a lot with the business side. They really struggle, and I really ran into this last year when I started getting hired for some big corporate oil company events and holiday parties. And my background's in finance. I spent 18 years counting. And I really struggled with assigning a value to what I did, and really, so some business questions, and I hope I'm not crossing any lines, and if I do, tell me. But I don't want any numbers. But the question that came across, first of all, I want to talk about. Well, let's go here. What percentage? And this is a question that came in from somebody watching. What percentage of your budget goes to production? And then after that, what percentage? No numbers. Is your take? Where does the putting one of these on? Where does the numbers break down percentage wise of how much actors, how much production, how much that all that?
Well, I tell you, when you say what percentage of budget, that's going to be a trick question, and I'll tell you why. Because I build that into my quotes with the client. So to me, it's a pass-through expense. Okay, so when you're talking about percentage of the budget, I have a budget line that is theatrical productions.
Gotcha.
And whatever my actors cost, because different actors
Right.
They don't always charge the same. All actors are not created equal. So that production cost goes straight through to that line item that is my theatrical productions. So I don't really do a big breakout on that one, okay? Because the client pays for it. Now, yes, I do write checks to my actors, but my line item is theatrical productions, and I also pay a costumer out of that. The vast majority of my line items are the downloadable mysteries, needless to say, because any place in the world you can go to mysteriesonthenet.com and download a mystery today. You know, I've sold a couple mysteries already today, hopefully more while we've been sitting here talking, because anybody in the world can download those things anytime they want to. In the course of a year, probably 4 to 5 theatrical type productions, because those are the rarest ones. I mean, they're the high ticket item. And if you really want to do it, if somebody really wants to do it, they've really got to pay for it. And small organizations don't want to pay for professional actors.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, they want to bring their own people in. But if I get a big fundraiser, and you know, we did performances at the Little Theater, we sold out 2 nights. We did a production of my Wild West mystery and sold out 6 performances, right? Well, you know, if you have that kind of an audience, you can afford to pay for the actors.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're doing 30 people, no, they can't afford that.
Right.
So, you know, so the smallest, I don't want to say the smallest portion, because dollar-wise it's bigger than the smallest portion. But as far as numbers are concerned, the downloadable is the big part. You know, when you talk about a percentage breakdown, per unit event, obviously the theatrical productions are the biggest per unit event.
Yeah.
But I don't get 1 or 2 every month.
Right. Right.
I'll get 4 or 5 a year.
So how do you go about marketing those? That's the other business question that I know a lot of creatives struggle with, is the marketing side of what we do as you know, mystery performers or mystery writers and mystery party people. The marketing is I mean, you've got obviously got a corporate level marketing, you've got a individual level marketing, and you've got a as we've discussed, you have a significant online presence.
Yeah, you mean with my 109 URLs? Yeah, there's a significant presence. That's my biggest thing. However, it's funny you should ask that. Let's see, today is Sunday. 2 days ago on Friday, I sent out a press release to papers in Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio about my new online services, where I will facilitate online. Now, why those 3 reasons? I'll tell you why. Well, I have a minor in journalism, and I know that the papers like local ties. Well, I live in Wisconsin. I was raised in Ohio. I have a degree from Michigan State. So in each one of those press releases, I focus on the fact that I have ties
your
to the
connection.
community.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right? So I sent out press releases to all of those different organizations. In terms of the other marketing, I have found that a lot of it has become word of mouth. At this point in my career, I get people contacting me. Oh,
Right.
the guy that does I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those weird guys like, are you a weird guy like Paul Knopfsinger? Yeah, I am. I'm one of those guys.
Yeah.
So sometimes the business finds you. And, you know, at one point I was buying the pay-per-clicks and everything else, and I was getting business off of it. But what I was finding was my profit margin was not nearly as much as I was hoping for.
Okay.
You know, that it didn't prove to be profitable, especially on the digital downloads, because the pay-per-clicks pretty much ate up most of the fee of the digital downloads. So right now, well, you know Tom Carr at the Brumder Mansion.
Right.
If you go to his website, he links to my my murder mysteries. I have an affiliate program. You know what affiliates are, of course. Those are people that promote my material. I have on the books like 110 affiliates who have links to my website. You have 110 affiliates, of which about 5 of them are really active. That's how affiliates work. But I have gotten leads. Think about this one. The lead I got for Canada, for the Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, came off of a website in Leeds, England.
Wow.
They were looking for a theatrical murder mystery, and she found Leeds, and it's Steve Haderley. I've met Steve. My daughter spent a semester in Leeds at the university, so we had dinner together. So he sent me the lead. And so the lead went from Canada to England to little old Cedarburg, Wisconsin. And that's how I got booked in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Very cool.
So you get the name out there. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. You get your name out there, and I don't want to spend a ton of money, but I want to do the things that get my name out there. There is a site where you can submit free articles. It costs you nothing to submit them, and anybody can download them for free. I will upload articles about what I do, and people can download them. They'll be on websites. They'll be on other people's websites. I don't charge them to talk about murder mysteries and how to facilitate them, as long as they put in my name and my URL.
Right, and your links. Right.
Yeah, put in my links. As long as that's there, you can have that article for free. I don't care. So there are ways that you can promote yourself out there without spending a ton of money. And that's what I tend to focus on, because in the past, I have spent money for things like the pay-per-click and things like that. What I have found is I'm not getting the return that I want to get on them. Most of it's because my kits only cost $39.
Right.
And if you want to get to be number one in any particular area, it started off at like 10 cents. Now it's up to like $2 or $3, right? To get to number one in that particular link. That means I have to sell one of every 11 people that come to my website, and then I'm breaking even.
Right. Right. No, absolutely, absolutely. And I appreciate you talking about the business side. That's something that that I mentioned that creatives don't talk about often, and I think that shows. That shows a lot. That not everybody is that some creatives are very good at what they do, but terrible business people. We have a question from the viewers that says, "Have you ever done a ticketed event with profit sharing, for example, 50-50 or 60-40?" I imagine I'm going to let you answer, and then go ahead.
Well, I'll just say that when I do a performance at the Brumger Mansion, we mentioned they have a speakeasy theater, and I have actually done the speakeasy theater, and they do that. They sell tickets and the whole thing, and they will pay me a flat fee. I don't do my own ticketing events. Here's the reason why. I don't really have a venue.
Right.
I'm working other people's venues. If I want to have a venue, I got to rent the venue. So, as you know, too, because you were there, the Brumger does a series of murder mysteries. That's one of the things they specialize in. And Tom Marks, whom you met also, the theatrical guy in the Brumger, he runs the Speakeasy Theater. Tom is very theatrical, and yeah, they have online ticketing. But I charge a flat fee, which is good, and I'll tell you why. Because you start doing the fee split, right, the ticket split, what if 3 people book tickets?
Right. Right.
And so if three people book tickets, I still get my fee. If 200 people book tickets, I still get my fee, and it's going to balance out over time. The one thing that I do like as a creative person, the one thing I don't want to do is start having to keep track of the numbers of people.
Right. This is what it costs. This is what it costs to get me there. Do it, or do it or don't. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. And the other thing people ask me about too, is when they call me, is do you charge by the person? And no, I charge a flat fee. The reason for that: what if I charge you for 25 people and 28 showed up? What am I going to? Are you going to pay me for 3 more people, right? What if I charge you for 25 and only 10 show up? Are you going to want a refund for the 15 that didn't show up?
Right.
To me, that I don't want to go through all that. This is my fee, right? And it's always 50% up front, by the way. I always get 50% up front. 50% up front to hold that date. And by the way, it's not a deposit, it's a retainer.
Gotcha.
If anybody out there talking about professionals, you put a deposit on a room, you put a retainer on a professional.
That's great. That's great. I like that a lot.
I never say I want a deposit. I'll say I want a retainer. What you're doing is retaining my service, and then the night of the booking, I get the other 50%. Okay, and I've never been stiffed on a mystery. I have been stiffed on professional speaking, but I won't go into that because I speak in different countries too.
Yeah.
So, but I've never had a problem with the speaking, because what I will normally do, or with the mysteries, because what I will normally do is the day before, I will call and say, by the way, you will have my check waiting for you, right? Make sure it's made out to, just want to make sure you know, and I will get handed the check
right
on that day.
And I've recently, with doing the corporate events that I did last year, I've always been kind of a handshake, phone call, email guy where I haven't had contracts. Well, all of a sudden, when a client is asking that I provide a $1 million performers liability insurance clause, and I bring a sound system. Well, then that's making it a little bit more than doing friends and family shit in my basement. I've got it's real. So I have a contract that requires, I put deposit, but I'm not calling it a deposit anymore. And then the check to be in this name handed to me before I go on. And it's been my very first. I would say professional show for another client I did was at a series of restaurants, and we had a ticket split, and it was terrible. It was an absolute, because they didn't care whether they were going to sell the food. They didn't care whether they were going to get sell tickets or not. So some nights I would do my show for 4 people. I would do a complete 90-minute dinner show for a table of 4 because they didn't care about selling tickets, and then I'd walk out of there with $60. And which is fine, but it barely paid for the getting there and getting home and putting it, so that I've learned a lot over it, and I think that's one of the things that I think creatives need to work on more especially now that it's getting tighter. I don't believe that the big corporate paychecks that I had last November, December, and this January are going to come this year. I don't think that's going to happen this year, and maybe not for a few years to come. Maybe things are going to change. So I appreciate you talking the business. I know that's not always the most fun part, but it is probably what people will take home with them. So I think we're about the 2 hours. So I don't know if we'll go ahead and kind of wrap it up. And Jack, if you'll stay on, I'll log off on Facebook. If you'll stay on, we'll part after we log off. But do you have anything you want to say in parting? Okay. I mean, I'll try to get as many of these. I've made some notes of the websites, but please, anything you want to say?
Well, no, it's just been a great time, Paul. I can talk about this for a lot longer than 2 hours if you want me to. You know how that works. And it's just nice to be able to share a lot of these things. And I hope that our magical mystery cruise will actually take place sometime, because I'm going to just talk a little bit about that. One of the reasons that Paul and I talked about this was that we felt we could have the clues appear by magic. So think about this. And what we had also talked about, and it was going to be based on Blackbeard, we were going to meet Blackbeard the first night of the mystery. The ghost of Blackbeard would come in and sort of set the stage for the mystery cruise, and then we were going to be on the sea solving the case. So there are always ways that if you want to get something done, you can find a way to do it. There's none of this stuff about, this is going to be too complicated. You know what? If you want to make it happen, there's a way to make it happen. You just have to think about it, and you have to really examine all the processes. And it might not be exactly the way that you thought it was going to happen at the beginning, but there's a way to make it happen.
Well, and I remember you had asked me, do you think we could do this? And I said, well, of course we could. Yeah, we'll figure it out. And Danielle asked me, well, how are you going to do that? I said, fuck, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I did the very same thing, Paul. Isn't that amazing?
Right. I don't know how we'll do it. We'll figure it out. I've got 300-400 magic books in my basement. There's got to be a clue in there somewhere. We'll figure it out. We'll get it done. So,
concept, put up the website. We'll see what happens.
Right. So, all right, guys. So, again, Jack, you'll stay on. I just want to real quick. Again, next week is the Booze and Bourbon podcast. That's going to be a lot of fun. If you get a chance, go to the Booze and Bourbon podcast on Facebook and listen to a couple of the episodes. They do a Would You Rather, and I want to play a mystery collection version of Would You Rather with them. And I've told them, and they're a little bit terrified, but let's keep the questions. Let's keep them decent. I know that's hard, but let's keep them appropriate. But I want to play that, and then we've got Brian Kane the next week, and then we'll get going again on the 15th of this month. I'm probably gonna head out for a few weeks. So the trail now leads me. The first night I'll be in Wilson, Kansas. There's a railroad hotel there, and they want to talk about maybe doing a show on the Saturday the 15th. So if you're anywhere between Greeley, Colorado, and Wilson, Kansas, and you want to connect, and then the next night I'll drive down to Dallas, spend a night in Dallas or two, and go see some of the sites and visit some pals down there. And then I'll head to New Orleans for I don't know, a week, 10 days or so before I head home. I'm going to film a lot of stuff down in New Orleans. I don't plan on having any public shows, but if you're down there and you want to connect, We're gonna do some little filming and some build up some promotion stuff for me, and then I'll be doing this Sunday show live from New Orleans on August 23rd. Again, if you get a chance, I don't know if I mentioned this. I'll post it up. I've been trying to get this woman named Kathleen Roberts to come on the show. I've sent her a couple messages. She is the Ghost Host 17 on Instagram, and she is Kathleen Ghost Host Roberts on Facebook. This woman is a medium. She believes that she has the power to connect with ghosts, and she has recently married the ghost of Michael Jackson. And I think she would be a blast to have on and talk with her. She believes she's married to the ghost of Michael Jackson. She does karaoke and she sings as Michael Jackson. I really would like. So she's not replied back to my messages. So if you guys would hit those up on social media and tell her, hey, listen, you got to go on this silly show. Also, please check out the Patreon, patreon.com, Mystery Collection. It's how I'm gonna go forward with this for a while. So, okay, everyone, let me figure out how to log out of this thing. And guys, I appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. I thanks for everything. Listen to Bill Hicks. Thanks.